crossover event. Once their forbidden love unleashed the evil hidden within him. Now their passion will reignite, and nothing will keep them apart.
If we let something happen here,
What do you see?
We got trouble.
we'd want more.
But this time, their love will bring consequences
Angel?
they could never imagine. An all-new Buffy Angel crossover event.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Slade, the Buffyverse Revisited. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James. And Jeremy,
Yes.
did you know that sometimes some crimes
Go
go
slipping
through the cracks? Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
But there's two gumshoes.
And they're picking up the slack.
Yep.
There's no case too small. And when you need help, just call. Chippendale
Yes.
Rescue Rangers. How's it going?
It's going. Bit of a headache, bit of a sinus infection. Not my normal chipper self, probably, but I'm here. So fuck it.
There you go. And you know what? At least on top of not feeling great,
Mhm.
you're not having to deal with two bad episodes as we record.
Yes,
As we record for both Buffy and Angel.
this is true, my friend.
Because the episode of Buffy we're about to revisit, and subsequently next week's episode of Angel, are probably two of the best episodes of either series.
Ever.
Yeah. So.
Yep.
So there you
How
go.
are you doing? What's going on with you?
I'm all right. A little tired, having trouble sleeping, but other than that, I'm okay. No complaints.
Heroin.
Heroin.
Heroin will take care of that. Yeah.
Oh, we'll take care of that.
Don't nod right out.
Oh, okay.
You ever heard the there's a lyric to a song that says "A million poppies gonna make me sleep"?
No, I don't think I have.
Now don't do a million because
Don't do a million.
permanently, but
Yeah. Permanent sleep doesn't sound that bad sometimes.
sometimes. Yep. So, why don't you say words and I will react?
Okay. All right. How about if we revisit Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 4, Episode 8, our 64th episode of the series overall, Pangs. Actually, before we get into that, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yes,
Thanks
thank
listening
you.
and viewing.
I am still full from the
from the future Thanksgiving meal.
Yes.
Right, because this will be dropping before Thanksgiving.
Oh,
So.
yeah. So, yeah.
So, happy Thanksgiving week, everybody. Coincidentally, as happenstance would have it, by no prior planning of our own, because neither Jeremy and I are smart enough, this week's episode of Buffy is a Thanksgiving-themed episode.
And brought to you by our good friends at Manscaped. No, I'm just kidding.
But one of the few I've been trying to think, Jeremy. I can't think of any other show off the top, and I know it's been done. I'm sure I've seen them.
Lots of sitcoms.
But I off the top of my head, I can't think of any particularly memorable Thanksgiving episodes of any shows.
Lots of sitcoms always hit all the holidays just because they're like weekly shows and
Right.
Simple. But yeah, like hour-long, say, dramas or dramedies. No, can't think of any.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. As previously stated, we're revisiting Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 4, Episode 8, our 64th episode of the series overall, Pangs. Our episode director this week is Michael Lang, and our episode credited writer is Jane Espenson. Our original air date was November 23rd, 1999 on the now defunct WB network. We pulled in a Nielsen rating of 4.2 million households when it first aired, ranking it 80th out of 125 network primetime shows for the week and third out of the 15 primetime shows airing on the WB for the week. Our regular cast, as always, includes Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy, Nicholas Brendan as Xander, Allison Hannigan as Willow, Anthony Stewart Head as Giles, and James Marsters, who I believe this episode marks the first time he is added as a regular cast member to the opening credits.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think it happened last week.
No.
Our guest stars this week include Mark Blucas as Riley, Mercedes McNabb as Harmony, Bailey Chase as Graham, Leonard Roberts as Forrest, Emma Caulfield as Anya, Todd Thawley as Hus, and David Boreanaz as Angel. That's right, our first full-fledged crossover between the two leads of our Buffyverse shows.
That's right.
And this was, of course, billed by the WB as part one of a two-part crossover.
Yes.
Airing that night. Our episode synopsis this week reads, Angel secretly arrives in Sunnydale to protect Buffy from the vengeful spirits of Chumash Indians who materialize on Thanksgiving.
Wow. That's it?
That's it.
Mine reads, on Thanksgiving, Buffy encounters the spirit of a Native American warrior whose people were wiped out by settlers.
Okay.
Not really accurate, but close enough.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, close enough.
So we open and we're in some woods, and we see just a regular Joe walking through, and we hear a nearby branch break, and he stops and kind of looks around, but then keeps going on his way, and he hears something else and turns around, and we see that Buffy's standing there behind him, and Buffy, acts kind of surprised, and Buffy asks if he's looking for her, and acts kind of confused, and Buffy just hauls off and fucking clocks this guy right in the fucking face.
Yep.
And he immediately vamps out, and they proceed to engage in fisticuffs, and she ends up, of course, getting the upper hand and staking him, and we pan over to some bushes and foliage, and we see that Angel is watching this whole event unfold.
Yeah, a literal angel from heaven.
Right.
He's floating there with wings and
Yep.
kind of transparent, white glow around him. No.
Yeah.
So,
I was just saying that's our cold open.
It was pretty quick.
It was a very quick cold open. I should mention too that before we pan to Angel, after Buffy dusts the vampire, she kind of seems to feel something. Like, we get the idea that she's like she senses that something is off about her environment.
Yeah.
And that's when we cut to Angel hiding in the bushes.
When we cut to Angel, he's actually like tweaking a nipple really hard, and he's like, oh, yeah, Buffy.
Yeah.
Nothing gets him off more than watching her murder people.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, he's a strange guy. So anyway, we come back, and we're at UC Sunnydale, and they're having a groundbreaking ceremony because they're going to be building a new cultural center. And Buffy and Willow and Anya are a little bit off in the distance, kind of watching things. And there's I guess the head professor of the cultural center, I'm assuming, is the one that goes up to the podium to talk. And
it's the dean of students. It's the college dean.
So not even close. Uh, so she's up there addressing what's going on and everything, and Anya just keeps going on and on about Xander, who is a part of this construction crew. So he's now on to his new career as a construction guy, which, spoiler alert, he stays the rest of his life.
He does. He does. And actually, I want to correct myself. The person that was originally speaking was the dean, dean of the college. The lady you were referring to is you're correct. She's like the head of the cultural department there at UC Sunnydale.
Oh, okay. So yeah, the Anya keeps going on about she imagining having sex with Xander and yada yada. And
like, I'm gonna mention this. Like, it was funny. Like, it was amusing to me, but also I'm like I don't know. Like, to me,
you don't want to have sex with Xander?
I don't want to have sex. Not the same way I want to have sex with David Boreanaz. But no, like, I don't get it. Like, he's just like an average Joe to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, not exceptionally, like, yeah. He's a little flabby even.
Oh, so so you're that picky?
I'm not that picky, but I mean, obviously he's not as flabby as like myself or you, but
yeah. What are you? Whoa! You leave me out of this, sir. I am a svelte, slim, and trim, ripped athlete. All right.
But like, Anya sits standing there going on about Xander's sinewy muscles and stuff. I'm like, where?
Yeah. Yeah. At best, he's got like a swimmer's build.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not, and he doesn't have any rippling muscles. But
yeah.
Anyway, it does the trick for Anya. So.
And it was funny. It was a pretty funny scene.
Yeah, and they're all talking about Thanksgiving, and Buffy's like, "Well, I won't be having Thanksgiving because where is her mom? Where is her mom, James?
Out whoring around.
No. She's at Aunt Darlene's."
Yes. I was gonna point that out.
So Buffy has an Aunt Darlene. So, and I'm like, wait a minute. So mom went ahead and went out of town to family's house for Thanksgiving and was like, yeah, fuck Buffy.
Right.
I mean, she's a freshman in college. She's grown up now, so I'm no longer going to do things for or with her.
Right. Just fuck that bitch.
Yeah.
I never wanted kids in the first place.
Yeah. Now she's showing her true colors.
Do we think this is the same aunt that Joyce called when Buffy got into the University of Illinois?
I thought she gave her name in that episode, and I don't remember it being Darlene.
Oh, she might have, and I just don't remember.
Okay. Look that up while I talk.
Sure.
Just hack. You just type in theanswerthatIneed.com.
Yeah. The answer. Yeah, go ahead, proceed. I'll the answer that I need.
So Xander begins to dig and then suddenly collapses through the ground. There was a boarded up thing, and he's now in this giant room, which appears to be some type of church or monastery. It seems to be perhaps the Sunnydale Mission. And he's like, yeah, I'm good. And you hear the people hollering down, we'll get you out of there. And it's really creepy down there. So, by the way, and Buffy had decided, or no, she hadn't. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. So let's see. Then Buffy and Willow are in their dorm room, and they're talking about Thanksgiving and whatnot. And that's when Buffy decides she's going to do the Thanksgiving herself. She will do all the cooking and yada yada, and everybody can just come because miraculously no one has any plans for Thanksgiving. Willow doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving normally because she was raised that way because her mother is fucking weird. And Obviously Anya, she's normally demoning, so she doesn't so everybody's gonna come. And we cut to a scene of Spike, who's like covered in a blanket, walking around through town. He looks to be like a corpse. He looks terrible. And he's kind of running through the woods trying to escape Riley and Riley's team, who are still out looking for him from when he escaped.
Right.
And there's some banter back and forth between Riley and his guys, of which I give zero shits, so I will skip that. And then Anya, it's the next day, and Anya arrives at Xander's, and she's like, Xander, why aren't you digging? I went to watch you digging, and you're not digging. And he's like, well, I'm about to be. He's really sick all of a sudden. So she's like, starts stripping his clothes off of him, and she's like, well, you can't go to work, and you're sick, and you could be dying. And he's like, well, your bedside manner's killer.
Yeah, so, she's like, I inflicted a lot of diseases on men over, the course of my time as a vengeance demon, and you appear to have all of them.
Right. So, there's this green haze that comes up from the old mission. We see that, and it kind of like floats towards the current cultural center, where we see this case of like weapons and whatnot, and Professor Gerhardt is on the telephone. This is the woman talking about, well, now this is going to delay everything because we've discovered this mission that's been missing since like 1811 or something. Yada, yada, yada. And then she gets off the phone, and this green mist turns into a fucking poorly fucking dressed, ridiculous Native American outfitted guy, and he takes the knife, and she just stands there frozen like an idiot, and he spins her around and cuts her motherfucking throat, just straight up. Like I was expecting him to just be like, ah, and like jab her, and she's like, oh, but no, he spins her around and fucking slices her fucking throat, dude.
Yeah, and brutal. Thank you, because I watched it obviously, and I was like, we've seen some brutal things on this show up to this point. I was like, this might almost be the most graphic that we actually saw on screen.
Yeah, because up to now, the most graphic kind of kills we ever see is usually Angel snapping somebody's fucking neck.
Sure.
Which is like his go-to fucking thing.
Right.
But yeah, not now. We have a new contender.
A new standard bearer.
Throat cutter McGee here. So then we cut to Buffy and Willow later on, kind of investigating the murder scene, and trying to figure out. Okay, well, they said the coroner said the curator or the professor's body was missing an ear, and I was like, yeah, he wants to make a necklace. He's native. So then Buffy discovers that the knife is missing, and they say, oh, she says, here's a card that explains it, Chumash knife, yada, yada. So then we cut to Buffy at Giles' place, and they're discussing the whole thing, and she's telling him about the murder, the knife, the whole 9 yards. And and she's all like, okay, so basically she has usurped his house, his apartment, to have Thanksgiving at.
Yes.
And he's like, wait a minute, tell me again why we're not doing this at your place. And she just gives him the fucking stink eye, and he smartly just shuts up. But yeah, so she's, go ahead.
I was gonna say, she's like, it's you. She's like, she says something to the effect of like, you're British, but you've been here a while. It's time you start assimilating to our American traditions,
right?
Or something to that effect.
Yeah. So Um, so then Giles was like, well, okay, I'll look up some information on these Chumash people. He already knew that they were all in that area, in the area of Sunnydale back in the day. So he's like, I'll look up some information, and Buffy's like, and she bounces, and as soon as she does, Giles puts his hands in his pockets, and he's like, well, what do you think? And then someone comes from around the what the what what's happening? And it's Angel, who comes around the corner, and he's been in there the whole time listening, and he's like, yeah. So, at the end of the Angel episode last week, we saw that what was his first name? Shit, I was going to call him. Yeah, Francis. We saw that Francis had a vision and about Buffy, so this is why he's in town. He's got this vision about, or Francis had this vision about this Native American guy, and it's extreme danger for Buffy, and yada yada. So Angel's now in town, but he's not letting Buffy know he's here. He's keeping it on the DL.
Yes, he has decided that it would be best to keep it a secret from Buffy.
Right. Which, as we all know, it's probably not going to work. It's not going to be the idea.
Right. At some point, that's doomed for failure.
Because when she inevitably finds out, she's going to fuck him up. So, yeah, he's there, and they're talking about the whole thing, and Giles is like, it's not fair. That's what she's going to say. That you're here and you can see her, but she can't see you, and yada yada. And so we cut to Buffy and Willow talking basically about Thanksgiving prep and that kind of thing, and they're out on the street. They're walking the streets. And, no. They are out on the street. They are out on the street though, and because they're going around picking up last minute ingredients and shit, and because Willow's like, well, you have whipped cream. I saw it in Giles's refrigerator, and she's like, that's canned, and if you don't whip it yourself, it's not really whipped cream. And I was like, yeah, and fucking Cool Whip.
and Willow's like, oh, well, maybe we can churn our own butter too.
Yeah. So, and then Riley comes calling, and she's like, oh, I didn't even see you. And he's like, oh yeah, I was just across the street and down like 3 blocks and yada, yada, yada. So he's caught up to her, and they're he's having a little fawning session. And of course she's still oblivious to Riley's, true intentions of molesting her. So
trying to get that slagina.
Yes. Oh, is he trying to stake her? Is that what you're saying?
He's trying to stake that slagina.
Oh shit! So Buffy, she invites him to this Thanksgiving get together, and he's like, no, I won't be here. I'm flying home to Iowa, and he's got a bunch of boring things to say, which I don't care about.
Because Iowa's inherently boring.
Because yeah, it's Iowa. So shit, I lost my place. Okay, here we go. So when Willow split off from those two, which I forgot to mention she did while they were talking.
Yeah, I was gonna say she makes a poor excuse about going to get some coffee.
Yeah. And whilst doing so, she runs into Angel. And she's all like, you're evil again. And he's like, no, I'm not evil. And she's like, okay. And she's like, he tells her what he's doing. He's here, keeping an eye on Buffy, going to try to help her out of this situation, yada, yada. He's like, I'm not here for personal reasons. I'm only here to keep her safe. And, I don't have time for personal stuff. And then he immediately sees fucking Riley, and he's like, who's that guy?
Yeah. He's all just, I just need to know one thing. Who's that guy she's talking to?
Right. So then we cut back to a starving, pathetic Spike. And what's he doing, James?
He's on fire.
I knew you were going to say that.
He's on fire.
He's on fire.
He's on fire.
He's literally burning and just burning and screaming.
Just like it's
he's
awful.
Not even trying to like stop.
Put himself out. No.
He's just like, ah! He's just burning.
Yeah, he's just accepted his fate at this point.
Yeah.
No, this is Spike, how I like to see him, honestly. Weak and defeated and just a shell of himself.
Wow, you're a real dick.
Now he is back at the lair that he and Harmony had established together. And he's
at the lair.
Yeah.
And then they were going to fire that laser.
I just want freaking sharks with laser beams.
Scott, just quiet down over there, Scott.
Zip it.
I got a whole over here for you. Would you like a suckle from my zipple? Sorry.
He's trying to like butter her up to because he needs food. Like he can't. He's got that. He as we learned in last week's episode, he's got some sort of implant now that is keeping him from harming any living thing.
Yep.
So he's trying to.
He can't rape. He can't pillage.
Right. So he's trying.
Poor bastard.
Yeah. So he's trying to rizz up Harmony so he can get some food from her. Yeah. And it doesn't work. She threatens to stake him, which good on Harmony, honestly. Yeah. Like good on her.
She maintains her power.
Yeah. So he ends up leaving. And then we cut to Buffy looking for Father Gabriel, who, we should have mentioned that in the scene with Giles and Angel asked Giles if he knew Father Gabriel, and Giles says he doesn't, but Angel tells him that he should reach out to him for more information about the Shumash. So that's where Buffy is now. And she sees that he's been killed by the...
He's literally hanging by a noose.
He is.
And it looks like he was like carving him up with the knife.
He was taking his ear. He was cutting his ear off.
I thought he was cutting off his pecker.
No.
And I was like, wow, that's kind of cool.
Right. It's also weird that he was clearly like carving up at like on his head and you thought his penis was up there.
I'm not good at anatomy.
I'm not good at anatomy, he says.
I'm not good at anatomies.
So we cut back to...
Well, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
What?
No,
go ahead.
We did make it pretty clear that Spirit got there first and had killed him.
Yeah.
And they have some fisticuffs.
Yes, they do. They have some fisticuffs, and Buffy actually like beats him, and she's getting ready to like deal the final blow, and he says something to her. I didn't write it down. I don't know if
he says I don't remember it all, but he says basically you wiped out my people, and now you're going to destroy their spirit.
Yes,
this must be a great day for you.
Yes,
And
And
it should have been like, it is, and then fucking stabbed him.
right.
And then credits.
Exactly.
Get on with Thanksgiving.
Right. 100%. Just go get some cranberry sauce and stuffing.
Yes.
But not deviled eggs, because those things are awful.
Bro. I quit the show again.
I knew that would get him. All right. So then we cut to Giles. No, and like Buffy, like she takes that to heart. Like, and she
makes her stop, and then she literally just kind of like flings him away.
Right.
And he fucking like he bursts into a bunch of, was it I couldn't tell what it was on my screen. Was it ravens or?
Yeah, I think it was crows. Ravens or crows, one of them. Okay.
He like bursts into a million of those, and they fly off.
They scatter, yeah.
Yeah.
So then we cut back to Giles's place, and they're discussing how I'm sorry. Buffy and Giles are talking about what happened, and also fixing Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that it's the next day. It's now actually Thanksgiving Day.
Right. And Willow shows up with a stack of books on the shumash and some frozen peas. And
which pisses Buffy off.
Which, yes, Buffy's not happy about it.
Because Buffy wanted her to get fresh peas.
Yes.
And because and Willow's like, I didn't have time. I was doing all this research. And she's like, well, now they're going to be mushy. And Giles is like, I quite like mushy peas.
Yes.
And Buffy just fucking gives him the eye again. He's like, I'm sorry.
Yes. The amount of times that Buffy like side eyes Giles in this episode, and he just like
he's like, I didn't say anything.
So Willow explains that the Shumash were once peaceful, and but they were horribly mistreated by this people that colonized Sunnydale.
Well, the same story as all the Native Americans.
I was just going to say, which of course they were, because
they were given blankets with smallpox on them, and fucking
right.
It's horrible. I don't even really want to fucking rehash it. But yeah, they were treated like most Native Americans were, and brutally fucking murdered.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. Like, of course they were, because that's what our fucking people did. Like,
we came, we saw, we murdered.
We murdered, and then we took what we wanted.
Yeah.
Want, take, have, as Faith would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And apparently she also explains that apparently the cutting off of the ear is a way to prove that they made a successful kill.
Yeah. And it's also at this time where it's clear that Willow is not on board with killing this guy, slaying this spirit. And
right.
She's like her character in this episode is like the original woke chick. Like, she's not into this shit at all.
Yeah.
And so her and Giles go back and forth many times.
Yeah. 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 They have quite an argument about what happened to the indigenous people, and
they both have valid points. Like, he's like, okay, I understand. He's like, and it's horrible, but we've got to fucking stop this shit because he's killing innocent people.
Right.
And Willow's like, I don't know, I see her point, but her argument's kind of weak, because I'm like, well, what's your fucking solution, Willow?
Right. Right. And I agree 100%. Like, she's definitely got a valid argument. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. Like, what was done to indigenous people by, colonizers right, was horrible. Like, it's horrible. But also on on the same token, like Giles is right. Like that's awful, but this spirit of vengeance thing is killing innocent people. Like that's not fucking good.
We have to. We literally can't just ignore that.
Right.
You
know. Buffy is clearly like upset by the bickering back and forth between,
and about the fact that she doesn't know what to do about this spirit. She's like torn between Giles and Willow.
Right.
She's not sure what to do.
Right. And it's never clearly stated in the episode, but I have to wonder, like, because there's several times, and we'll talk about them as we continue on here. There's several times in this episode where characters are arguing, Willow and Giles in particular, and Buffy like she just doesn't deal with it well. And I almost kind of have to wonder if it wasn't like a subtle commentary on what she might have gone through around holidays growing up, leading to her parents' divorce.
Yeah.
Like you know.
And plus, does anybody have family holidays that weren't some type of disaster?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like who hasn't? You know.
Right. So she ends up going off into the kitchen to kind of get away from the argument and everything. And when she's in the kitchen, Giles and Willow kind of have a brief discussion about Angel being back in Sunnydale and secretly trying to protect Buffy. And then we cut to Anya and Xander arriving at Giles's place, and she's practically carrying this poor bastard. He's so sick.
Yeah.
And
he's all like, "Happy Thanksgiving." They're all like, "You came to Thanksgiving with like the croup? What the fuck is wrong with you?"
Right.
Well, that would have been my first thing. Why are you here?
Right.
Bringing us germs.
Right. We don't all want to get sick. What the fuck, dude?
Go home and die quietly.
So they do some research and they find out that his penis got diseases from the Shumash tribe.
It did. He's got fucking syphilis.
It looks like he
has little what's the word I'm looking for? He's got like symptoms of several different nasty fucking like smallpox, fucking malaria, syphilis, and that's what brings him fucking up off the couch. And he's like, "What?
Yeah,
I have the what?"
Yep. And you've got the gonorrhoepasyphilitis, bro. That's what happens.
It's over. And Anya's all like, "Yeah, it'll eventually make you go mad and blind."
Yes.
And he's like, what? And then she's like, "And you'll get pustules." And she goes, "Here's the pictures."
And then we cut to Spike showing up at Giles's place.
Yeah,
and
knocking on the door.
And how does that go, Jeremy?
Well, they open the door, or Buffy does. She answers the door, and no one's there. And then he kind of comes from beside the door, and he's got the blanket over him, because the sun's out. And he's like, he says, "Help me."
Yeah.
And she immediately fucking decks him and drops him. And he's like, "What the fuck? I said, help me. Do you punch people that say help me?" And she's like, it's you. I don't like you. And so let's see. Giles comes to the door at that point, and I think the others are kind of standing, behind them.
Right.
And he's like, "I need your help. I can't even hurt anyone. Ask Willow, and what I did." And she's like, "Yeah, you said you were going to kill me and Buffy next." And and then he's like, "Yeah, but I didn't." And she's like, "Yeah, it's true, because he couldn't perform." And so they don't go into any specifics, because I don't think he knows what it is at this point, but he's just like, "I can't hurt anything."
Right.
And so long story short, they bring him in.
Yeah, because he ends up telling them that he's got inside information on the initiative, and
Right.
that's kind of what finally.
Right. And so they bring him in, and Buffy ties him up to a chair, and he's like, "God, woman, you're cutting off the circulation." And she's like, "You don't have any circulation." He's like, "Well, it pinches." So, um, and then another big fight erupts between everyone about what to do about this fucking vengeance demon, or avenging spirit, I guess you call it. And pretty much everyone's in agreement that it's got to be slayed. There's no way around it. That's the only way that's going to fix Xander and stop this thing from killing people. And Willow's kind of like, no. And then fucking, this whole long scene is just a fantastic scene. But Spike breaks in and he's like, "Oh, boo hoo." He's like, "I'm sick of all this mamby-pamby nonsense." He's like, "You guys had better weapons. You wanted the land. You fucking took it. Quit crying." He's like, "That's what conquering nations do."
Right.
And yada yada yada. And it's a great bunch of writing in here.
It really is. At one point, Xander's like, "It's a vengeance demon. They deserve to be killed." And Anya's like, "I didn't know you felt that way."
And he's like, "But I'm not talking about you." And yes, like everyone's bickering. And Buffy's like, "This is no good." And everybody looks up at her, and she starts to storm off, and she was like, it needs more whatever, vanilla or whatever. And
yeah.
Yeah, so things are crazy. So yeah, so like I said, they all agree. Or how does that work? I didn't write it down. How did Willow and Anya decide to go find the dean?
Oh,
Because
yeah,
Dean's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, they as the bickering is kind of happening, they also kind of realize that this vengeance spirit is going after
People in authority.
People of authority.
Yeah,
and
so like, oh shit, the dean might be next.
Right. So then Willow and Anya and Xander go to warn the dean.
Well, Willow's like, "Well, I'll go," and Buffy's like, "Not alone," and Anya's like, "Well, I'll go too," and Xander's like, "Yeah, me too," and he's getting up off the couch, and she's like, "Are you sure you're okay to do that?" And Spike is like, "Yeah, leave that one here. He looks like he might die soon, and I might get something to eat."
Yeah.
And Xander's like, "Yeah, I'm going." And so they go off, and we cut to the vengeance spirit. He's doing this, like, I don't know I guess it's a spell, something where he's like calling forth all these other creatures to take the form of other Native American warriors to help, in other words, to put together a raiding party.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so when we come back, Willow and Anya and Xander had been to the dean's house. They're walking away from it at this point, and they're like, "Well, everything was fine there." And Xander was like, "Yeah, I like how as soon as they open the door, you start asking if everybody has their ears." Anya, and she's like, "I liked his wife. She gave me pie." And so they stop and start kind of talking, or no, they run into Angel,
right.
And they're kind of filling him in on what they were doing and everything. And he's like, "No, this guy's the spirit's a warrior. He would go after other warriors. He would go after the strongest fighter." And they're all like, "Oh shit, Buffy." And I'm like, "No, wait a minute. Then why the fuck are you there? Why aren't you just at like outside Giles' house, like in the corner, just like
right.
watching?"
Right.
If you already know this, because you know the fucker's going to show up there.
I also liked when Angel first like makes himself known to the three of them, Xander accuses him of being evil again.
Oh yeah.
And Angel's
like,
like, I'm not evil.
Keep saying that.
Right, I'm not evil. Why does everyone keep saying that?
Yeah.
And Anya's like, so this is Angel. He's very, what does she say, dark and glowery.
Yeah, something like that. And
which is kind of a goof 'em up because they've met before.
Yeah.
So
when she was still a vengeance demon.
Yeah.
So so of course they all realize this and they're like, fuck, we got to get back to Giles. And right at that time we cut back and fucking all hell breaks loose at Giles. They're under fucking attack. And there's arrows and shit slinging there. It's crazy fucking it's crazy town in there. And what I love is every time the camera pans to fucking Spike,
he's got another arrow. Yes.
He's got like 100 arrows in him. Like it's brilliant. It's brilliant comedy. And so at one point, like, Angel stops at a payphone to call Giles' house to warn them, and Giles reaches up and gets the phone and he pulls it down and he's like, yeah, we're under siege now. I'm gonna let you go. And Buffy's like, who the fuck was that? And it's just like, oh, it was a person.
Yeah.
And it's just fucking crazy. It's hilarious. So then, oh my God, dude, this episode. So then Angel's like, okay, you guys ride. And he runs over to these bicycles and like rips the chains off of them. So we see this scene where the three of them are riding bikes. Like, dude, it's fucking hilarious, dude. And anyway, they make it back and there's a big fight and they realize these fuckers, they're not dying. We can't seem to kill them. And then Angel comes in and he apparently kills one because he does the old neck snap and it stays down.
Seems to work. I like he snaps the spirit's neck and Anya's looks at Willow and she's like, if that's him not evil, what's he? I hate to see him when he is.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah. So, and then of course Buffy's mainly fighting with the main guy, and at one point she disarms him and gets a hold of his knife and slashes at him and hits him in the arm and he gets cut and he bleeds. And she's like, oh, you can be killed with your own knife. And at that point, he turns into a motherfucking bear. And Spike has another great line.
The bear, you made a bear.
Yeah, take it back. And then he starts
change it back.
He starts scooting in his fucking chair, like trying to scoot away, and then he falls over flat on his back. So he's got like 11 arrows sticking out of him. And so she starts having fisticuffs with a motherfucking bear.
Yes.
And at one point, finally she gets the knife again. She gets kind of behind it, reaches around and stabs it in the chest. And it turns back into the spirit, the Native American, and then it dissipates back into that green shit and goes away, and our villain has been vanquished.
Yes.
And we cut back outside of Giles' house which is where Anya and was it Anya and Xander or Anya and Willow?
Anya and Willow and Angel.
Yeah, well, I was getting to that, but
yeah,
Anya and Willow were out. That's where they were fighting one out there, and they're talking to Angel, and he's like, "Okay, everything's cool." So he pulls his Angel thing and just fucks right off. And now they're all sitting down to their Thanksgiving dinner, and Spike he's there. They were nice and removed the arrows, but he is still tied to his chair.
And he still hasn't gotten anything to eat.
He still hasn't gotten anything to eat, and he's still whining about it. That he still hasn't been fed. And somebody says something, and Xander says, yeah, it was like old times again, with us all working together and everything. And he's like, especially the part about, when Angel was here.
Yeah, especially with having Angel here.
Yeah, and then we go to a POV shot of Buffy, who's looking at the whole table, who's all looking at her like, and the
Oh,
the
fuck.
look on Spike's face,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like
He's
loving this shit.
yeah.
And we cut to credits, and that's the episode.
Right, and you like after when it cuts to black, you just hear Xander, and he's like, "Oops."
Yeah, he goes, oops.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the end. That is the end of our episode. Jeremy,
Yes.
would you like to take a stab or steak, as the case may be, at our body count for this episode?
I'm gonna just throw some shit on the wall and see what sticks. I'm gonna say 6.
11.
Holy fuck!
Yes, we had that first vampire staked
That's
by.
got to be one of our. Well, no, because I guess that the school blowing up episode was probably more, but this has to be one of our top
It
body
is.
episodes.
It is. We have the vampire that Buffy staked at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't need them all.
Okay, never mind then.
Just
We've got
11. Holy fuck!
the vampire at the beginning.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna do 6, and I was like, it might be like 7 though, but damn, 11.
Yeah, we've got the vampire staked at the beginning.
No, I still don't need them all.
The unidentified guy that was getting drained by. We didn't mention that when Spike walked by some warehouse or something.
Oh yeah, the vamps that were in there
and
at
he
a
peeked
nest.
in, and there was a vamp nest, and they were draining a dude.
I wouldn't count that because he wasn't dead.
I'm counting it.
No, he wasn't dead.
Professor Gerhardt, Father Gabriel,
Yeah.
6 Shumash warriors, and then our main Shumash spirit
Vengeance.
thing. But I'll asterisk it and say 10, possibly.
Because I don't think, because usually when the vampires get one of those, they keep it alive forever. So like it's like they're feeding. It's like they're bag of chips.
Right. Our music this week, just the original score by series composer Christoph Beck. Jeremy.
Yes.
Tell me, how many angry indigenous tribes do you give this episode?
My friend, this is a solid 5 all day long. There's no other rating that this could possibly, unless you're going to break the scale and give it a 6. It's damn near flawless. I only had 2, and they're very fucking minor complaints. The one about Angel, like saying, well, he'll go after Buffy, like matter of factly. And I'm like, then why aren't you fucking there watching?
Right.
Which, again, that's minor. And then the costuming and wardrobing for the Native Americans, it's just silly.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's the fucking 90s, so another minor thing. Dude, this fucking episode, the writing, the comedy, everybody's comedic timing. This is where we're gonna start. Shit just gets better. Like I don't even know what to say. It's this is Buffy at its best. You got all this comedy, but you got serious shit in there too, and it's just it's great writing, great acting by everyone involved. And this is even one of those episodes where you actually like Xander and like the things, like, you know what I'm saying? Like he's way more likable. And yeah, I could go on and on and on and on and on. I don't want to bore people. Everybody saw the same episode, but I'm telling you, this is Buffy at its best. Episodes like this, which there's a lot more, and even some that are even arguably even better. Yeah, and that is Buffy at its best. Yeah. It's almost like the act. You could almost see in the actors that they like the material so much that they're even doing better than normal, which they always do great. Right. But it's just like you can tell that they're really like chewing up this material. Like, oh, this is good shit. You know, everybody's got some great shit to say. Everybody has good line. You know, it's fucking phenomenal. And God, there's so many things I want to say, but I can't because it would be spoiler-ish. So I'm not
Right.
going to say it, but oh boy, it just gets better. It really does. And this episode being in season 4, I had forgotten about. So it makes me really happy because I know how drab some of these upcoming season 4 episodes are going to be. So
Right. Right.
it's nice to have this one in there.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's a 5 all day, every day. James,
Yes, sir.
how many poorly dressed Native Americans do you give this episode?
I am giving this episode 5 poorly costumed Native Americans.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said is fucking spot on, man. Like, this is, I was talking to someone yesterday, as a matter of fact, about this episode. And, I was like, this is Buffy at firing on all cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is Buffy at its best. When people think about Buffy the Vampire Slayer and what a good show it is, like, this is what they think about.
Right.
Like, this is one of the episodes that gets lumped into that. And all of the things that those episodes all have in common are like front and center in this episode. The writing, the acting, which, like we've said before, the acting is always, regardless of the material they're given, the acting is always phenomenal.
Yep.
But it's like you just said, it's so much more obvious when the actors themselves really think they have good material, because it's just elevated that much more.
Yeah, they chew it up, man.
Yeah, the comedy, the balance of comedy and seriousness in this episode is perfect. Yeah, everyone is utilized, phenomenally. It's just such a fucking good episode. Like you said, there's no way it's not a 5. There's just no way.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that in one hand, it's kind of like a standalone like episode for the season arc overall, but also it's kind of the beginning of reestablishing certain dynamics within the group.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, obviously Spike,
Yep.
and his dynamic with our main characters, which we will see evolve, as the show progresses. So yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I don't know what else to say. I mean, you nailed it. I mean, everybody at this point that's listening or watching has probably seen it, so they know. Yeah, you said you would say it's almost a flawless episode, and I'm going to take that a step further and say it is flawless. Like, to me, there's nothing wrong with this episode. Like,
yeah, I can get behind that.
So,
and I will say, another thing that makes this episode so good is knowing that it's part 1 of 2.
Right.
Because next week's episode of Angel is a continuation of this episode. So
right. Is a direct result of things happening in this episode, primarily Angel being there and not bothering to tell Buffy, and then Xander,
Xandering it
and spilling the beans. And that's another thing about this episode too. Like, it was nice to after having Buffy and Angel apart for almost half a season now.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to see, even though they didn't interact, it was good to see David Boreanaz back, on the Sunnydale set and interacting with some of the other main cast. But it wasn't. And this is something I'll touch on with I Will Remember You when we cover it for next week, the second part of this 2-parter, because they do the same thing with Sarah and Buffy. Angel wasn't overbearing in this episode. Like,
Yeah.
his presence was felt, but he wasn't like, it wasn't all about, oh my gosh, we've got Angel in this episode. You know what I'm saying?
You got to put it all on him, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would have been so easy as a
Yeah,
crossover episode.
he was just an ancillary character.
Right. And it would have been so easy, you know, as a crossover episode to have Angel show up and like save the day, and, you know, so to speak.
Yeah.
Which is something I'll touch on in I Will Remember You.
He will touch on it.
It's kind of related to what I'm saying here, but yeah, it would have been so easy to just have Angel swoop in and kind of eat up the entire episode and be the one who saves the day, you know. But they didn't. They very much, like you said, he was an ancillary character, and it was still very much about Buffy, and Buffy saved the day.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a 5. It's Buffy at its best. So anyone that disagrees with that, feel free to go fuck yourselves.
Yes, with a cactus.
With a cactus. In all of your holes.
Oh, I wasn't going to go that far, but okay. I can get behind it. James, tell our beautiful audience how they can interact with us and find more information on our award-winning, worldwide known podcast.
You can go to BuffyRevisited.com, and you will find links to our Facebook, our YouTube, and our merchandise store. That's right, folks. We have merchandise now.
Yes, we do.
Quick note on the merchandise. One of our listeners was kind enough to send us several pictures of the Slade the Buffyverse Revisited beefy tee in the wild. And I've been granted permission to share those. So I will insert those into this episode right now. If you're watching, you'll be seeing those pictures.
Right there they are. Oh my God.
Yep. If you're not watching and you're just listening, then either head over to YouTube's and fast forward to this part so you can see them, or pop over to Facebook. I'll put them up on Facebook as well, and you can see what that looks like in the wild. She did. It looks like she did alter hers a little bit. She may have. It looks like she might have cut off a little bit of the bottom to kind of crop it a little bit.
Because they're beefy tees. They're big.
Right. But she did send a couple pictures prior to doing that, and then after doing it. So I'll put those up, and you guys can kind of get an idea of what the tees look like out in the wild. I don't have the mug with me, otherwise I'd show you that in the wild. But I have previously been using that on the podcast. But yes, click on the Facebook link or the YouTube link. You'll be able to find our posts about each and every episode, and you can hop into the comments and leave us your thoughts and opinions on the episodes and the podcast and the shows overall. Hit us up. There's a link to our email address. It's Gmail, or it's buffyrevisited@gmail.com. Feel free to email us there. As everyone's well aware, we will be doing listener mail episodes at the end of every month. I mean, pretty much every 4 episodes, there will be a listener mail episode. Where
we do need to talk about that, James. There might be a slight delay in this month's thing. So I'm saying it on the show so that the listeners know. There might be a slight delay on this month's.
Okay.
We're talking like a week.
Okay.
But we'll talk about that, you and I.
Sure. So our guest, to the best of my knowledge, is still Darlene for the next one. If anybody else would like to partake in that, we've already dropped one where our guest was S-Dub. So feel free to go, take a listen to that, see how that all went down.
The venerable S-Dub.
See how that went down and what it's all about. We currently don't have anyone lined up after Darlene, so anyone feel free to reach out to us, and if you would like to partake in the third listener mail episode. But
otherwise, it'll be me and James jerking each other off.
Right, and also start dropping some comments in the comment section. Otherwise, we won't even have a listener mail episode.
Yeah,
so
it.
Yeah, so.
Oh, and I'll throw that at Buffy Revisited .printify.me. That's the link to the merch store. I'll keep saying it for, another month or so to help promote it. But
yeah, definitely. And of course,
there's nowhere to link it. There's nowhere I can put a link to it on the main page because it just dumps right into the main page of our podcast.
Right.
And there's nowhere to put it, but it's everywhere else. It's in the description of the podcast itself, every episode that drops.
Yep, it's in the description of the video version of the podcast. It's in the Facebook posts about the podcast, and it's in.
I have it tattooed to my forehead.
If you go to our Facebook page, there's a link tree that has all our links as well. It's in there. So yeah, that's all I have.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us this week. As always, join us next week for Angels Season 1, Episode 8, I Will Remember You, which is the continuation of this very episode.
Yes.
So, James, with all that being said, do you have anything else you want to throw out there?
I do not.
All right, everybody. We will see you next week. I have been one of your hosts. I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James.
Ta-ta.